These are the brand new chairs anyway. So if you're wearing nice clothes, you might want to, keep them on the new chairs, not the ones that have been there for a few decades. But I'm just throwing that out there. Welcome, everybody, to Masterclass Central Florida. How many of you have ever been here before? Raise your hand. How many of you is this your first time here? Raise your hand. Can everyone clap for the newbies? Just say welcome. We do this the third Thursday of every month, January through November, and the point of it is really simple. Back in 2017, I think we came up with it, we just realized there weren't a lot of places except for individual brokerages where you could actually learn from agents without an ulterior motive. There was always someone with something to sell you, something to recruit you for, a political or a board or a brokerage affiliation. There was always something to keep it from being neutral. And we were like, hey, what if we just put 3, 4, 5 people that are in the top 500 on a stage to talk about how they got there, instead of just throwing parties as real producers. Like, how many of you guys have been to a real producers event before, by the way? Okay, so if you don't know Real Producers, we make a magazine and host events for the top 500 agents in Greater Orlando, and we've done it for 8 years. And what we used to say was like, people would say, hey, how do I get an invite to that party? How come I didn't get invited? And we'd be like, sell more and hit the list next year. So we realized that wasn't the best approach. So we decided to build a bridge. And so Masterclass is that bridge where we put the agents who hit the list on stage to teach anyone that wants to learn exactly how they did it without any ulterior motive. And anyone that paid for a ticket today, all the funds go to Base Camp Children's Cancer Foundation. We've just been rolling it for them all year. Can we give a round of applause to that? So anyway, without further ado, we've got about 90 advertising partners that support real producers. So if you meet anyone here in the room that does not sell real estate, they are not here by accident. They didn't bring bagels or donuts. They are super legit. They are vetted. They are referred by other top 500 agents. They are some of the best of the best. So if you meet an inspector, a title person, a mortgage person, anyone in this room, I promise you there's someone you actually want to know. And we had a handful step up extra to make today happen in particular. So I'm going to give each of them 60 seconds. It's not a ton of time, but they're going to tell you who they are, what they do. Make sure you show them some love, shout them out, follow them, connect with them after. Afterwards, the first $500 spent at the Eden Lounge bar after is covered by PJ Crescenzo with Element Mortgage. He's not here today, but he sent me a message and said, I still want to buy all the lunch. So let's just give him a 1, 2, 3 clap on 3. 1, 2, 3. So if you see PJ, tell him thank you. If you've never met him, make sure you meet him later. But anyway, I'm going to let each of them talk for a second, and then we're going to bring up our panelists. And let's show them some love. By the way, guys, the button on the left till you see a green light. If it's red, that means you're muted. Let's start with you, Christy. And you could jump in front of the chairs if you want. That probably would look better.
Good morning. I think I got it turned on this morning.
You're good.
I'm Christy Keene. I'm with DeVore Design. We do all things media, whether it's staging, listing, photography, websites. But what I want to tell you guys about this morning has to do with the commission being taken out for the MLS. We actually conferred with someone from Stellar yesterday that in your single property website that we designed for you and that tour that comes along with it, because it is not IDX feed, you can put the buy side, what are we calling it? We're not calling it commission. Compensation? Is that the word we're using? So you can put that in there now. So if anybody has any questions on how to do that on your DeVore site, give me a shout. I'll be happy to help out.
Let's do this, and let's keep this thing rolling. All right.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Steve Bell. I'm one of the owner partners with Harding Bell International. We are a full-service CPA firm specializing in property stuff, real estate agents, property managers, investors, specifically foreign investors. We do a ton of FERPA. We have a team dedicated just for that. We have 6 locations here in Florida, 5 in the Central Florida, 1 in Sarasota. We can work with anybody in the U.S. Tax-wise, and so we work with small business entrepreneurs, so need tax advice, and we are a CPA accounting firm, and I usually try to think of something funny to say, but I got nothing today. Great to be here.
Awesome. I don't know. I probably don't have nothing either. Hey, everybody. Heather Hurry, Pillar to Post, the Jeff Mackey team, Home Inspections, Richard McKay here. And, yeah, bright lights. So just by a raise of hands, who in here has actually had an inspection with Pillar to Post, the Jeff Mackey team, specifically Richard or the team? Great, lots of hands, love it. So a couple of things to be reminded of. We're coming to a season where we need to educate, right? So if you need education, I'm there for you. I teach 5 different 3-hour CE classes, and Richard is a wealth of knowledge. He actually just built me a toolbox, didn't he? You built me a toolbox. So if you need any explanation on what those things are, we're gonna have lunch after. Please come rack his brain with questions, and we're very happy to be here. Have a great masterclass.
Love it.
All right.
Keep going.
Right, good morning. Good morning. My name is Monica. I'm with Assured Partners Insurance Brokerage here based out of Lake Mary. We do insurance all over Florida, also nationwide as well. My goal and my team's goal is to get you guys to the closing table because we know insurance has been a nuance these last couple of years. So we are a knowledgeable group of people that know how to just get you through. Also, Orpheus is coming up and I was nominated as female partner of the year. So I would love if you guys have a moment to vote for me. And if you haven't worked with me, I will be happy to help. So please reach out and I have my cards. I'll be in the back. Thank you.
Love it. And before Caesar goes up, I'm just going to name a few people that weren't able to make it, and all of them will do a rolling 1, 2, 3 clap when I count to 3. Let me name them first, though. We've got Artesian Title, Rick Nayar and his team that used to be Title Genius. They were Artesian Title. They sold the name, and they're back to Artesian Title. It's weird, but it works. So we're going to give them 1, 2, 3 clap in a second. We also have Chance Kelly with Miracle Movers. We've got the team from Waterstone Mortgage. Mosin and his team with Florida Home Photo are out shooting photos. And we also have Penguin Property Management. Hopefully that was everybody. Also, I'll just name our supporting sponsors while we're at it, and our charity sponsor, Apex Group, Guaranteed Rate. They gave $250 to Base Camp. CFBI is in the building, Central Florida Building Inspectors, and Unique Title is also in the building. I've seen a few of them here. Let's give them all 1, 2, 3. All right, Caesar, bring us home.
All right, I'm Cesar Costa, the owner of House Master Home Inspections. Have you seen the latest edition? On page 40, there is an amazing article. Information is power. Be powerful. So very good tips on how to avoid issues with inspections. And talking about issues, the only thing that I want to talk today is about guarantees and protection. So at Housemaster, we have something called referral liability protection. So if you tell someone, listen, this is our team, they're amazing, they do motor mine, drain line, infrared, drones, everything in-house, great company, there is a risk. So my insurance covers you. I have $1 million insurance policy, 0 deductibles, that includes the agents. So that's very unique. And another thing that I have, it's called limited repair reimbursement guarantee. So if something goes wrong in inspection and is not covered by the insurance, I have another layer of protection. It's a very simple
Love it.
one page with the coverage.
Love
and so we had like Richard Ibar from the Kendricks team, Eileen from Exit Global. They both had issues with the pipe. We talked to the insurance. The insurance said, it's not covered. It's concealed underground. Nobody can do anything. I said, no, I'm going to pay. And I paid $1,500 and $2,500 for the repair. So I do stand behind the inspections, and I make sure your customers are happy, and something goes wrong, I will stand by. So Cesar Costa, House Master Home Inspections done right, guaranteed. Hope to work with you soon.
Love it, Caesar. Let's give it up for all the sponsors today. And make sure you follow them, like them. I know they don't have long to speak, but we know that you guys don't want to sit through a long commercial. So make sure you show them some love. Meet these people. They're worth knowing. So y'all came here to learn something today, right? All right. Let's just bring up our first panelist. John Pinel was born and raised right here in Winter Park. He lives in College Park with his wife, 2 boys, daughter-in-law, and a new granddaughter. He partnered with Mick Knight over 13 years ago, and the two of them have averaged not 100 million career sales. They've averaged over $100 million in sales per year. Is that pretty awesome? Say, oh yeah. $172 million closed last year. They've been named in Real Trends top 10 teams in America, the top 100 with Sotheby's International Real Estate Worldwide. They've been in our top few agents or top agent every single year since we started ranking them. So let's give it up for John Pinel. Danielle O'Quinn, she's coming into her 3rd year in real estate, so she's definitely the new one to the panel. She's already closed over 12 transactions, each over $1 million. She's done over $40 million in sales, including having closed one of Central Florida's highest priced sales at $13 million just this week. Representing the sellers, she's a full-time working mom of 2 small children, one of the fastest rising stars in the luxury real estate market locally, so we figured she'd bring a ton to the panel. Let's give it up for Danielle O'Quinn with Wemert Group. Christensen started in real estate over 17 years ago with his wife, Julie. They used to own Regal Christie's with 5 offices, over 100 agents. They sold the Sotheby's back in 2020. He joined Compass more recently, and they've closed over $78 million last year with an average list price over, not $1 million, but over $2 million average. Let's give it up for Chris Christensen. And also, I believe, just so no one's wondering, Frank Benevento got called to jury duty, so there is a slight chance he makes it if he gets out early, but there's a pretty good chance that he's stuck at jury duty. So we'll give him a 1, 2, 3 clap on the count of 3, and we'll bring him on another panel sometime. 1, 2, 3. All right, Tiphany Weeks is the broker and owner of Diamond Real Estate Group, a boutique real estate brokerage focused on the simple idea of helping clients find their way home. She's earned her place among the top 1% of agents in the area year over year while maintaining an average price point of over $1 million. So every year she's on our M Club list, which are people that make the top 500 but have a 7-figure plus average transaction. So I lost where I was going with that. But collaboration, clear communication, authenticity, tenacity are Tiphany's keys to building success, bringing a ton of energy to our panel. Let's give it up for Tiphany Weeks. And then I guess we'll just get started, and if Frank happens to walk in, we'll throw him on. But I'm going to guess that he's not coming. So if y'all see Frank, tease him for me. Or shoot him a picture and say you did a great job today. No, I'm just kidding. Let's get this started. Let's talk about how you started in real estate and how you got started in real estate. Let's do 3 of them. How you got started in real estate, what your business looks like today. Like, are you a team? Are you not a team? Are you solo? And then how you specifically got into luxury real estate. So let's start. How you got into real estate? What does it look like now? And how did you get into luxury? If there's a difference between the first and third question. I'll start with you, John. Oh, by the way, the mic's on the button on the left. You hold it to turn it on. You hit it once more to unmute it. So if you should be green if you're good. And make sure you talk into the mics because these guys might hear you, but the people on Zoom need it to be in mic.
Am I on? Ready to hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I've been licensed since 2001. My family's been in real estate in Central Florida since 1947. After the economic crash, I was in banking and decided I didn't want to be in an industry that the feds could come and tell you exactly what you had to do. Wanted to control my own destiny. So in 2011, I convinced Mick Knight to let me be his business partner. Timing was everything. And so I kind of launched into luxury real estate the old-fashioned way. I just hitched my cart to a stallion, and we kind of took off from there.
Okay, am I on? All right. So my name's Danielle. I'm heading into just my 3rd year in real estate, actually this August. Before this, I did dental sales for 5 years. I've been in sales for about a decade now, but I always kind of had a passion for real estate after buying my second home, and I basically handled the whole transaction myself, is why I kind of made the jump like most other people. After getting into real estate, my 3rd month, I closed my first $1 million sale. And once I kind of got into that price bracket, that's kind of where I knew I wanted to be. So I kind of just set my sights on wanting to stay in the luxury market. So after that, my 4th month, I closed a $3 million transaction and then a $2 million. And so I really just found a way to get my foot in that door. And that's kind of where I've been stuck ever since.
Love it.
I got into real estate about 17 years ago, background originally in engineering. For me, a revelation for me in real estate was my wife and I went to list a house and the real estate agent pulled up in a Bentley. At the time I was in engineering and I was like, man, I do a lot of work and I'm not in a Bentley. But so that stuck in my mind. The company I worked for got bought out, started laying people off. And this first thing that popped into my mind is getting into real estate because I've always loved it. So my wife and I got licenses together, got started being an engineer. It was strategic for me. I sat down, I looked at what I'm selling, the price points. When I take out marketing, I take out splits, I take out everything. What am I making an hour? And it just made sense to me to focus on the luxury market. So that's what we did and gotten to where we are today. just some luck and some, meeting the right people. But it's been great. It's been a great ride.
I have been in the industry and licensed for, this will be my 10th year, which is wild to me. It doesn't feel like that long. But I got into real estate. I always had a passion for it, but I moved a lot. And so I experienced a lot of subpar agents. I, in my previous life, moved on average maybe about 4 times a year. So it motivated me to get my license and start. And I started out with the intention of being a luxury agent. I realized it wasn't as easy as I thought, and really didn't do much of anything. Unlike Danielle, my start was really slow. Like a lot of agents, it was years before I really found my footing. And even when I remember one of my highest listings at that point early in my career, I had no idea what I was doing. I called Chris, who was my broker at the time, and I was like, hey, help me. I don't know what I'm doing here. And so through time and really a journey that was not straight and narrow, it had a lot of twists, turns, ups, downs. I sort of landed here, and it was really by nature of doing a great job for my clients, and they continued to refer me to their network. And that's how I sort of landed in the luxury space and stayed here.
Let's talk a little bit more about staying there. So I'll stay with you, and then I'll go down the line. What are some of the things you actually think contributed being able to stay there? Because it's one thing to sell something in a luxury market, but it's another to continue to get referrals, to get more business, to cultivate more, to not have it be like a one-time thing. So can you speak a little bit to like what you did to make sure that a client becomes another customer, or becomes another referral, or to keep your foot in the door?
Yeah, so very early in my career, the earlier part of what you said was my journey. Did one, and that was that. And I realized after the fact, right after talking to people who were in this space, I think one of the big challenges in our industry is that we fake it till we make it way too tough. Like way too tough. When you're surrounded by people who actually know what they're doing, who actually navigate the space. And it took me a long time to reach out to those people and say, hey, help me here. I realized I had no follow-up. I didn't necessarily really know what I was doing. And so when I got the opportunity later in my career, I made sure I fixed some of those issues. And so I did have follow-up. I made sure I did a damn good job for my clients. And so they really built my business because they continued to refer me.
Love it. Chris, you want to talk about how you've stayed there and how you've, I mean, it sounds like you picked intentionally that price point. So talk about how you reverse engineered for it to actually work.
Sure. I mean, it's one thing to say, hey, I'm only going to focus on luxury real estate, and that's all I'm going to do. It's another thing to actually get there. I mean, like Tiphany said, I mean, it's a long process. But I think that you have to have a vision, and you have to stay focused on that vision and continue to work towards it. Don't lose sight of it. I mean, we started out selling smaller homes. My goal was always to sell the next home would be more expensive than the previous home that I sold, and just slowly work my way up. And then when we kind of made it into that market and we got our first $1 million listing, I made sure that we did an amazing job for that client. And I followed up for that client and stayed in touch with them, became close friends with them, got referrals from there, and then slowly built that network, from the ground up. But it was a long process. And I think in Central Florida, I mean, I think anybody here on the panel will tell you, like, you can't just say, I'm only going to sell $1 million listings, and if somebody else presents me with another opportunity, I'm going to pass on it. You're going to sell whatever price point is presented to you and do a great job. And I think that just doing a good job for people is the key. Doing a great job and staying in touch with them and making it a long-term relationship, not just collect your commission check and boom, you're out. You're doing something else.
So this might be obvious, but both of you have mentioned that you just did a really good job on the right client. Can you tell them what that actually looks like? Like beyond just closing the deal well, what are a few of the things that they need to make sure they're doing to be doing a good job with someone?
I mean, I think good job is like going above and beyond on everything. I mean, there's just, we do it every single day now. It's not like, hey, we're in the business now and we're up to this level and we're going to do a half-ass job. Doing a good job is doing things that you normally wouldn't even be planning on doing. I mean, especially when you're working with some of these, I mean, everyone on the panel can tell you some higher net worth clients. I mean, I'll give you an example. The house that we just sold on Anchorage, the son had put a car in the garage, crazy, but a Ferrari, and the dad that owned the house forgot the car was there. And we knew it was there, but I hadn't been to the house in about 3 days, and they were supposed to get it out. And like the night before, I told Julie, I'm like, did you check the garage to see if that car got moved? Because he was supposed to ship it over to Europe. She's like, no, I didn't. Got my clothes on. I mean, it was night. We were getting ready to go to bed. Got my clothes on, got in the car, went over there, looked. Nope, the car is there. And we're closing the next morning. And so, I picked up the car, put it in my garage, got it out of there so that the buyer could close on the house, and then made arrangements and worked with the seller's son to try to get the car shipped to him. So, just little things like that. And then I think also the biggest thing is just follow up. A huge part of our business comes from referrals. And if you're not staying in touch with people and following up with them and letting them know that, hey, I care about you after the sale, even after I got paid, you're not going to go very far.
Love it. Let's keep going. Danielle, how did you keep your foot in the door? Left button.
Oh, there. No, hey, it was great. A big thing for me was once I got into luxury and I made my first sale, obviously a big hurdle that I knew I was going to overcome and I had to figure out from day one was I didn't have the years experience that everybody else did. So going up in listing appointments against people that have been in this industry for 10, 15, 20 years, that's a big obstacle to overcome to sellers who are listing luxury and multi-million-dollar properties of why they would give me the opportunity to sell, their homes and work with them on the buy side over a more experienced, equipped agent. So what I did as soon as I got into this industry and I closed my first $1 million deal and I realized that this was the price bracket I wanted to be at, I did everything in my power to learn as much as I could. So I learned every community. I learned every neighborhood. I learned about the schools, about, who are the people that I'm targeting in this luxury market? Where are they? Where are they hanging out? Just really identifying that demographic of buyers and sellers so that I could be, well equipped in being able to hold those conversations and, be able to have them want to work with me. So I also kind of did what Tiphany said, I leaned really heavy once I first got into this business with other top realtors. So I did not, I took all the opportunities I could to make as many connections, to reach out to as many of them as I could, so that I could form relationships with them, because a huge thing in our business, and especially what I've learned now, is that relationships matter, especially with other agents and, in this luxury market, because working alongside of them inside of these deals or wanting to find off-market properties, those are really important things that most people don't think about that, I was fortunate enough to learn early on. So, and then my way I'm kind of getting business now and repeating business is a lot of referrals. So kind of what Chris said, just going above and beyond for my clients. When you get into luxury and, after I did my first $1 million deal, my mentor, Jenny, told me that this probably wasn't going to be a norm. And so her knowing me, I just go, okay, watch me. So then I go do a $2 million and a $3 million deal. And, here I am 12 deals later, over $1 million, and closed a $13 million deal this week. So it was really because I continued to do as much as I could for the people that were in my sphere and in my network and my past clients. So they wanted to refer me business and to want to work with me. An advantage also I think I have, which, again, with people like Chris and Tiphany and all of you, that you have books of business and you have years of experience. But for me, I don't have those, novels of past clients that I have to refer business pack to, but I'm going to get you to a closing table one way or the other. I have the connections, I have the network, I have the experience, I have the knowledge. And so my clients knowing that there's nothing I'm not going to do to make sure that they get to a closing table and that both sides of the parties are happy, has really kind of gave me a leg up.
Love
I
it.
think.
So what I'm hearing is assertiveness. John, tell us, you could answer the exact question, but I'd also like to really ask, because you guys have pretty much dominated Winter Park for a long time. So maybe slightly spin the question with, how have you guys positioned yourself to be the dominant real estate team, and how have you positioned yourselves to really be focused on the luxury niche consistently?
34 years ago, Mick started in the business and he started knocking on doors in a neighborhood. That was his mom's advice. His first few sales were about $25,000 a house. As we know, luxury markets are geographically dictated. And so we've been very blessed that we work a 3.5 mile radius, which takes us from College Park up through Maitland. If you know where Einstein's is on the corner of 1792 and Orange, and you go out 3.5 miles, that's the area we focus on. Do we sell in Lake Nona some? Yes. Or Windermere? Yes. But we don't take listings out that far because we're blessed we can refer those out, and we try and stay geographically focused. How do we stay there? Our biggest marketing tool is postcards. We send out about 25,000 postcards a year. Over half of that's paid by Sotheby's because you get a credit every time you sell a house, every sale side. And so when someone on the Winter Park chain of lakes has received 10 postcards from us in the last year, when they go to sell their house, which there's about 475 homes on the Winter Park chain of lakes, so you're going to get typically 5% of those a year will sell. So there's going to be opportunities, and we're going to be front of mind on all of them. But that's the way we've been blessed, is to be geographically focused, and we make it easy for the buy side agents to see our listings. I know when people are building their business that they might have to take listings everywhere, but there's nothing more frustrating when you're trying to set a schedule and the listing agent says, I got a showing at one of my listings in Sanford or Kissimmee, and so we add value by being geographically focused and having that knowledge to what you're talking about. Is we had a listing appointment yesterday, and the seller thought that their house was worth $2 million because their neighbor down the street just sold for $2 million. Their house is probably worth 1.5 at best, and they didn't realize the one that sold out was a 125-foot wide lot. They've got a 60-foot wide lot. They don't have much backyard in their house. The other one did. So there's a lot of factors that go into that.
So what I'm hearing is he really, really, really knows his market, because even the 478 homes, was it? Either way, how many of you guys know your area that well that you know exactly how many homes are within a certain mile radius with certain features? I bet the people on the stage do, but I bet you a few of you in the audience just realized the nugget there. Let me ask you, John, more specifically about how you actually handle stuff outside your area. What's the conversation when someone asks you, do you sell this, or is my house too small, or is this out of the air? Like, how do you handle people that either have a smaller listing and talk to you about it or don't talk to you about it? And how do you handle people that have interest in places outside your geographic area?
Yeah, I do talk about that with sellers a lot, because we'll hear people say, well, my house is only worth $750,000, but we show them the stats. I think we sold 15 homes last year under 700,000. I think I'm showing 4 houses this afternoon, and the highest price one is 600 to some friends of mine that are buying for their mom. But so that is something we have to educate people on, is that we're geographically focused and not price point focused. It just so happens that our geographical area is a high price, luxury market for the most part.
Love it. All right, let's talk about biggest mistakes or biggest tips for getting into the luxury market. So I'd love to know, or misnomers, we could say. So anything about like either biggest mistakes you made, the biggest tips you have for people breaking into it, or the biggest misnomers that agents have about the luxury market. I'll start with you, Tiphany.
I think that one of the biggest misconceptions, I will say, I think that real estate in general is really romanticized, right? There's all of the shows, and we see agents that say, okay, I'm going to be a luxury agent. So I'm going to go buy the Christian Louboutins. I'm going to go to Hermes. I'm going to get the belt. I'm going to go to Louis Vuitton. I'm going to get the bag, and I'm going to wear a nice outfit, and boom, here I am. I am the luxury agent, right? And they don't take any time to educate themselves, right? I was on a showing recently in Windermere with a property listed above $4 million, and an agent that's not very experienced was telling their client, like, you can clear all of the brush you see in this lakefront. You can clear everything out. There's no problems. It's your land. You can do what you want. No, you can't. And Town of Windermere will be in your backyard, issuing a very nice fine for doing so, right? And so I think that taking the time to actually educate yourself is important. You can look the part, and that's cute. But if you don't know what you're talking about, it's a problem, and you can end yourself in a really, really big problem. So I think that's one of the big issues I see. And then I also feel like there's this misconception about the collaboration, right? Me and Phil have not had an opportunity to do a deal yet, but I have worked and talked to everyone else on this stage, and it's very collaborative. And I think that one of the biggest strengths is that we let the problem be the problem. Their job is to represent their clients. My job is to represent my clients, right? And we're going to work together to get a deal done. And whatever problems arise, the problems are the problems. Chris isn't the problem. I'm not the problem. The problem is the problem. And one of the things that I see operating in different price points or with more inexperienced agents is they somehow associate you with the problem or your client with the problem. No, the problem is the problem, you know? And so the last deal I did with Chris, I don't remember if it was the day of closing or the day before closing, but there was a refrigerator that his clients didn't want and my clients weren't willing to take. What do? Got to get rid of the refrigerator, right? Like, it's just that simple. And there was no, well, who's going to do it? You're going to do it. I'm like, hey, we got to navigate this. You're going to take care of this. I'm going to take care of that. I'll get the refrigerator out. We're going to be good. And he had the confidence in knowing I'm going to get it done and we'll be fine, right? And I think that level of collaboration is necessary in this price point.
Love it. You mentioned education. Where do you recommend agents are actually educating themselves? Like, what should they be reading, looking up on, studying? Like, where do they get educated on their market?
So I think you can look at a lot of the reports and market statistics for your specific area, but I think even more so, figure out who's actually doing business in your area. When I have a new listing or something comes up that I'm not sure about, I can reach out to agents that I know have been there before. And so I think that we have this, you know, a lot of time agents will have a spirit of competition, but the reality of it is we're coworkers, right? So I will call my coworker and say, hey, somebody called me yesterday because they have a deal coming up and they were asking me because they have something similar to what I have listed. We talked through it. That's necessary and I think important, and I think people miss the opportunity to take advantage of that often.
Love it. Chris, let's keep going. The mistakes, misnomers, or tips you'd give.
I think the biggest misconception is that you're going to do something special if it's a luxury listing. If you aren't doing the best job you can possibly do for every single one of your clients, you're a complete idiot. I mean, it is about going above and beyond for everybody. I mean, it's like John said, I don't care whether it's a $400,000 listing or it's a $4 million listing. If you go talk to that client that I sold the $300,000 condo for last year, they're not going to tell you I did a shitty job. They're going to tell you I did an amazing job. Because it's a small town and you don't know who that person knows and you don't know who that person's going to refer to you. That person might know that you do multi-million-dollar houses and they're so happy that you did such a great job on that $300,000 listing. They may have a friend that has a multi-million-dollar house and they refer them to you. So, you know, I don't think that, you know, you have to do something special because multi-million-dollar listing. I do think that those clients are probably a bit more demanding. So you do have to go above and beyond more often. But, you know, I think no matter what list point you're at, you've got to be doing a great job for clients. I think that's the most important thing in this business.
Love it. Danielle?
I think one of the biggest misconceptions also is I get a lot of people, there's like a stigma around luxury. People don't want to do it. They kind of have this, you know, notion that luxury buyers and sellers are demanding, or it's just a more scary type of price bracket to work in. And it's really just another zero on, you know, the transaction. It's another dollar sign that you're just adding a zero to. There is a different level that you sometimes have to be able to, you know, be able to communicate at and be more well equipped and knowledgeable in. But I think that people really just back off when they see luxury listings, or they think that, you know, also to like, you know, to attest to what Chris said, they try and, you know, have to act special, or same with like Tiphany, like you dress the part and that's how you show up. Like I think when I, you know, sold my first $3 million home, I was still like in my Chrysler, like it wasn't anything exciting. I think you do need to obviously kind of, you know, mesh with that crowd if that's, you know, what your sites are set out on, and there are things that and expectations that are going to be expected of you. But I really think that, you know, luxury is also just a way that you treat your clients. You know, to somebody buying a $300,000 condo, that may be all the money they've saved up and had, and that is luxury to them. They may be getting out of a rental for the first time in 15 years. So you have to still do all the same things that you're going to be doing for somebody that you're selling a $3 million home to. So I think that it really is just about how you treat and how you elevate your level of service to people, and really just making yourself the most well-equipped and knowledged person in that, whether it's geographic area, whether it's just the price point area, and just taking care of your buyers and sellers that way.
Love it. John, what do you think the biggest misnomers are or biggest tips for getting into luxury?
I agree with everything that was said. When you're dealing in high-end sellers and buyers, they are typically successful at what they do, but a lot of them are doctors or entrepreneurs in other industries, and you're the professional in this industry, and so you have to have the knowledge about what and know what you're doing. You have to have the resources to make that process and the transaction go as smoothly as possible. As far as education, I don't know if is there any RE/MAX agents out in the audience today? Because I read earlier this year by Jordan Cohen, The Agent's Edge, which I don't know, and he's the #1 RE/MAX realtor in the country. He's in California. When he started, he didn't even know there was multi-million-dollar houses, and so he sells $350 million a year without a team of realtors, but has a support team, and he shows up every day in blue jeans and t-shirts, basically. So I do see a lot of people trying to fake it, but once again, the knowledge, the information that you have is all the power that you need.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, to attest to that, so Jordan Cohen, I read his book also, and one thing we've talked about is, with Tiphany, like reaching out to experienced agents. If you want to be, in everyone's shoes that you're looking up to, then you need to learn from them. You need to mimic them. And so I read his book also, and when my listing, I was able to put it on social media, I reached out to him on Instagram, and he posted it on his story for me. So, and he has hundreds of thousands of followers. I think he has like up to 1 million with celebrities that he does. And so him personally messaging me after I read his book and, being able to share my listing was huge. So I think just not being afraid to connect and reach out. And again, I always read and listen to as many luxury podcasts and books that I can, just to make sure that I'm, experienced enough to, again, hold conversations with people that I'm on stage with who have, years experience for me.
Well, there we go. All right, sorry about that. Let's go to the differences, because you guys talked a lot about how it's all the same. Let's talk about what you think is different selling luxury homes versus your average home, or is there a difference? I'll go back to this side and just go with you, John. What is different when you're dealing with a luxury property, or is anything different? And could you break down some of the things that should be different?
Mainly the clientele is different. My mentor, some of y'all might have heard of him, his name's Don Saunders. He had his office on Park Avenue in Winter Park for 25 years. He always said, John, if you can, break into the luxury market, the high-end market, to your point, it's just another zero. And typically, the transactions can be smoother because you're dealing with more sophisticated people. We do deals where there's FHA and VA loans. They are typically a lot more difficult, a lot more work. But that's the main difference, is the people that you deal with. Now, once again, you do treat everybody with respect. And selling a $250,000 condo last year, I think they would say the same, just like Chris said, that we treated them just the same way we treat a $10 million seller.
Love it. We'll stick on this side. How about biggest mistakes?
Biggest mistakes.
That either the agents made or that you've made?
What we have seen sometimes when an agent gets a multi-million-dollar buyer through a lead, I kind of use the word, they're salivating. You can see it, and they are all about the transaction more than what's best for the buyer. And I've seen that happen multiple times. I think you have to be confident, but not cocky, and also not like a puppy dog salivating.
Appreciate that. We'll go just straight down the line with either biggest mistakes, or you can jump on to the differences between luxury and all.
I think the differences is kind of what John said, that it's just a different level of clientele. They are most of the time a lot of, they're very educated, they're business owners, they're high net worth individuals. So you can't just talk the talk. You have to actually be able to walk the walk with them, or they will know the difference immediately. It does kind of make transactions at times go a little bit smoother because the finance side of it, they're already a little bit more advanced in knowing that. It's not like a first time home buyer where you're walking through the process of it. But it is also a completely different level of high demanding type of clients that you're dealing with. So there are the other issues and problems that arise with it too. I think mistakes is kind of to bounce off what Tiphany said earlier, is there's a lot of high emotion sometimes when it comes with a lot of money. So sometimes with that, you can experience people who don't remove emotions out of the deal. And at the end of the day, we're, like Tiphany said, I represent, my client, you're representing yours, and the deal is the deal. There's no emotions that need to be in it besides the sellers and the buyers, who are the ones who have their money involved in this. And so when you're working on the other side of the table from an agent who has emotions that they're putting into the deal, that can sometimes be an issue because they may really just want to get their paycheck from it. But we all want to get to a closing table, and the whole point is to be collaborative and to figure out how we do that from my side to your side. On the deal that I just closed this week, I was moving the buyer in on Monday. So, and I represented the sellers. So I was taking care of the buyer with the buyer's agent. I was helping her and she was helping me. We were making sure that we were getting the deal done together. And, regardless of emotions on both sides of the deal, you have to be the one who's professional and remove your emotions from it. So I think that's a big thing in luxury once you get to this price point, and understanding, how to get to the closing table of a transaction. And it's really with working alongside the other agent on the other side of the deal.
Love it. Chris, you good? Or you want me to repeat it?
No, I won't repeat the same thing. I'll say something a little bit different. I think that, if you get the opportunity, what I have seen is people that are selling lower price listings and they get that opportunity, someone refers them to somebody or whatever, be ready to work. Be ready to work. You're not going to slap a lockbox on this house and take phone calls and direct agents to go over and open house a lockbox. That's the one thing that I've seen just makes me sick to my stomach. When I'm going to a $2-3 million house and I'm opening a lockbox and walking my clients through it. Get there, show up, get the lights on, get the windows open, tour us through the house, tell us what's unique about it, sell us the house. Don't just slap a lockbox on it. It's your one opportunity, and you're blowing it. You're looking like an amateur. You're throwing a lockbox on it. You're not showing up. You're not engaged. The client's not going to be happy with the job you did. You're going to probably get fired, and if you don't get fired and you end up selling it, you're probably not going to get any referrals off of it. So, to me, be ready to work. If you get that opportunity, be ready to work.
Love it. Speaking of lockboxes, this month's session is brought to you by Century. No, I'm just kidding. But let's just go next. Tiphany, how about mistakes when it comes to luxury?
Mistakes. I will tell you one of the biggest mistakes I've made in my career, and I've made this mistake more than once, was taking something that a client said at face value. It is very easy to believe what looks to be true. And what I mean by that is, if they're driving the Bentley and they say, I have, $5 million and this is my price point and I live in this high-end community, it's really easy to believe that that is true. I have learned time and time again, treat that the same as you would treat someone that you don't know from a can of paint. Make sure you connect with the lender. Make sure you verify these things, because if not, you can end up in a very difficult situation to navigate. I made a mistake in believing what someone told me, believing the lifestyle that they portrayed, and they really had no money. And as a result, they lost $250,000. Make sure you do your due diligence so you don't make the mistakes that I've made.
Love it. You guys all hinted at this, so I got to ask you about marketing. Marketing luxury homes. Like Chris, you mentioned not just throwing a lockbox on it. Let's talk about what you do to market, what people need to be doing to market, or your most effective marketing strategies for luxury properties. I could stay with you, Tiphany.
So I remember very early on, and I think my first ever listing was my own home, right? I wasn't living here full time. Chris was my broker, I think, and I'm like, hey, we're going to sell our house. And I remember what he told me to expect to pay for photography, and I was like, wait, what? What do you mean expect to spend like $1,500 on photos? I'm like, I know agents that spend $200 on photos. And I see those agents get their shot at $1 million property and they use those $200 and it's terrible. An agent can see it, a buyer can see it a mile away. If you are not willing to invest in your own listings, right? Get high-end photography, do videography, do the drones. I know COVID is over, regardless of what some people believe. Get brochures that are quality printed. Make sure that your materials speak to the brand that you're trying to portray, right? I look at agents, and I've asked agents before, like, what's your marketing spend on this? And they'll be like, oh, $500. I'm like, wait, what? How? Right? Oftentimes, before we do anything, before we step into a property, I'm $2,500 in, right? And that's on the low end. We've done some outlandish things. We've done some very expensive things depending on the property. And I think that the best way to market yourself is being consistent about putting out quality materials, and that becomes the expectation, right? When you send out postcards, if you send out trash postcards, do you think the person that gets it is going to use you? That is your first representation of how you market and how you're going to market their property. And so I think just being intentional, I would rather send out no postcards than send out a trash one. There have been times that I've partnered with companies and I see what they put out on my behalf, you're immediately fired. I'm good. I'd rather put out nothing than put out something that is trash. And I think that people have to have that level of discipline and restraint to be intentional about what you put out there.
Love it. Chris,
Tiffany,
how about marketing?
Tiffany, you stole all my marketing.
It sounds like you trained her well.
She used to work with me, so she stole all my marketing ideas. No, I think exactly what she had said. I mean, you got a plan to spend some money. I would encourage agents, if you get the opportunity and you don't have the budget, just be honest. I would try to get someone in your office, grab someone that has sold houses at that price point, someone that has the budget, because you're going to spend money. I mean, we've got listings that we spent $30,000, $40,000 in marketing by the time it sells. So, I mean, it looks impressive, it looks fun, it looks whatever, but you're going to have to spend money to keep your client happy. You have to present the house in a certain way if you want to get it sold. So if you don't have the budget to do it, grab someone, do one with somebody else. Better to get half the commission than end up losing a listing because you didn't do a great job and get zero commission. And move on from there. Take the money you made from it, move on to the next one, maybe do the next one on your own.
For people that are mind blown by what you just said about the $20,000, $30,000, can you break that down a little bit? Like, what are some of the things you spent money on, and what are some of the expectations of that property or any?
Yeah, sure. I mean, you have different client levels. I mean, some people don't care. They trust you. You're the expert. Hey, just do whatever you do. Some don't even want to hear what you're doing. Others are very engaged. They're calling you every week. What are you doing to mark my house? They're anxious. They want to get it sold. They want to move on to the next thing. I mean, we've had clients that, forced us to put a color ad in the Wall Street Journal and, do things that we didn't even believe were going to result in a sale. But we spent the money because I wanted to keep the listing, and I eventually sold it, and I needed to get my investment back out of it. But, we've had many listings that we've gotten up to, $30,000, $40,000 in marketing cost.
How big's the listing when you're willing to do that?
It's like a $5 or $6 million listing. Obviously, you got to judge. If it's $1 million listing, I'm not going to go that deep in because I'm not going to make any money once it sells. You got to look at what's the percentage of, your eventual commission you're going to get on the sale price. But
what do you think your average is on a property?
We averaged last year over $2 million. So I would say on a property, we're going to spend probably $6,000 to $12,000.
And that's photography, that's
It's
staging. That's...
Sometimes we do staging. We pay for the staging a lot of times. If the seller's like, no, I don't want to stage it, but I know it needs to be staged. I mean, we might be $6,000 into staging by the time it sells. It's postcards, it's brochures, it's all things that Tiffany said. I mean, you can't skip a beat on any of it if you want to get it sold. And the thing is, too, you have to be committed. You have to believe in yourself. We had 100 agents working for us, and always, when they finally got that listing, I'd go on listing appointments with them and help them pitch and get the listing, and they'd be like, I think I'm just going to do the cheap photography. What if it doesn't sell? What if I don't sell it? If you're going in thinking you're not going to sell it, trust me, you're not going to sell it. You're just not.
Love it. Danielle?
Something that I really did, especially with my last listing, the one that was $13 million, is I think knowing who your buyer is when you go into your marketing. So I come from having a marketing degree and background, so knowing specific strategic marketing plans. If you've had agents who've sold in those same communities, reaching out to them to see what the kinds of buyers that they are. If there's people who are renting in those communities, my house that sold had a full NBA basketball court in it. So I had pulled every agent in the country that I could find that had a luxury designation that had anything affiliated with sports, who worked with sports teams. I reached out to sports managers and basketball teams, and really going above and beyond what just putting your house on Zillow with nice pictures and hoping somebody is going to call you. Because when you're really trying to sell these luxury and ultra luxury properties, they're not going to sell themselves. It's going to have to take a lot of work and a lot of behind the scenes of what you don't see to get these properties sold. And that's the expectations also from your sellers, to attest to what Chris said. Sometimes these are sellers who are asking, what are you doing? How many calls are you getting? What are you doing to do, to sell my home? And some days I was sending out 200 to 400 text messages, blasting out 400 to 600 emails, making 50 to 60 calls a day to different agents, to sports agents, just to get as many eyes as possible on my listing, because maximum exposure was going to give me the most opportunities to find a buyer. And especially in a market here where we don't sell ultra luxury properties all the time. This isn't Miami. We're not New York. We're not LA. Our price points are creeping up. I think we can all attest to that there are more luxury and ultra luxury properties on the market for sale. But still, to find that small share of the buyers who can afford this home, who want this specific of an anomaly property, you have to do the work with your marketing and really be strategic in how you do that.
Well, it's a hard one, I know.
I don't want everybody to be scared of thinking you have to spend $10,000 a listing. I think we spent maybe $100,000 last year on 50 listings, so maybe average $2,000 per listing. I do, and most of that's photography, and yes, we do spend more on some higher end listings with nighttime videos and stuff like that. But I do agree with Chris's stance on working with somebody. I had the fortune of being able to get multi-million-dollar listings because I had Mick. And I'll use an example. I have two boys, 28 and 25 years old. When they graduated college, they were complaining about the salaries that were being offered to them. And I told them, I said, you should be paying these companies to hire you, because all you're doing is learning the first couple of years. You're not adding a whole lot of value. They're investing in you. So if say you get a $5 million or an $8 million or a $2 million opportunity that you never had before, co-listing with somebody, when you go into that listing appointment, gives you credibility, gives you a track record. It might just be your broker. Bring your broker with you. Tout your office numbers. You have to have something to compete with the other agents that these sellers are interviewing. So that's kind of the advice that I give is co-broke and give up half the commission, or give up majority of the commission if you have to, if it gets you the listing and gets you the sale.
Right before I let Tiphany add to this, I didn't ask you, Danielle, and I didn't ask you, John. Average spend, do you think, on a property?
I think we're about 2,000, maybe.
About 2,000?
Yeah, some less and some more, but that's about it.
Danielle?
I think on our luxury, we're probably out 5,000 to 6,000.
Okay. And Tiphany, you wanted to add something?
I just wanted to piggyback off of what they said. Someone said this to me once, and it has stuck in my head forever. So many people will fight for an entire grape instead of taking half of a watermelon. Partner with someone who has the budget. I think I spent maybe close to $15,000 on a listing once that I did not sell. He changed his mind. I was professional about it. I took it on the chin. Was I upset? Yes. But I didn't, I stayed face. I still haven't sold that house. However, that person has referred me enough business to make up for it.
Love that.
So I think it's important to know you're going to spend some money, and if you don't have the money to spend, be honest and partner with someone who does.
Love it. One thing I didn't ask you all, and we'll just go down the line and get a quick answer. What about off-market properties? What do you do to market something that doesn't go on market?
These guys get emails from me all the time. Hey, I have this coming up, or hey, I have a buyer looking for this. Your network, look around the room, right? Why wouldn't I reach out to the people who are doing the deals to say, hey, I have this coming up? Keep
Love
it
it.
in mind. Or do you have someone looking for this? I think that is so important, and people just don't do it.
Love it. Chris?
I think the same. Communicating with agents that you know work in that space is super important, whether you've got something coming up or maybe you've got a buyer that's looking for something you're not finding, is critical. Also through Compass, we can actually list properties in our system and market to all of the Compass agents nationwide without putting it live on the market.
Same kind of what they've said. I used to do every Monday. I would go through my buyers list to see who was looking for, if they were looking in Keens Point or if they were looking for, on the lake or wherever they were, and I would just pull all the luxury agents or anyone who had sold, a house over $1 million in like the last year or 2 years in those communities, and I would sit. And on every Monday afternoon, I would just start texting. And I would text every single one of them. I'd make it in my notes and I'd copy it. And so I would basically just say, I'm sure they've all had hundreds of texts from me that they probably didn't respond to at first until eventually I had something to make them bite. But it would just say, hey, hi, this is Danielle with Wemert Group Realty. I have a buyer looking for, 4 bedrooms, 2 baths, up to 1.5 with like a pool in Keens Point. Do you have anything coming soon? So I would do that every Monday. I would go and I would text hundreds of agents, and if they don't respond, text them again. I mean, we all get texts all the time. And so if they didn't respond, I didn't care. Next week, I was still going to text them. Or if it was every 2 weeks, I was still going to text them. You have to let whatever type of, guards you have in this industry down if you want to be successful. There's no, you can't think of what are they thinking of me? They didn't respond the last time. Have some sort of ego, like let it go. Like if you want to get business and you want to be successful, you have to do whatever you need to do to find those for your clients. And, I sold a $2.9 million home with Teresa and Mike Stewart that they never brought to market because I never stopped texting them asking for something. So when she had something, I was the first person she texted. And she let me know what she had coming soon. And same, with Shane Croft. He had sent me something before because they knew my name, and these agents I had never done deals with because they never stopped seeing my name in their phone. And so that's how these relationships began to form. That's how I started getting off-market properties sent to me by them. And then, again, once you have that credibility established is how you start getting your foot in the door.
Love it. And is that self-fulfilling at some point where when you're working with a high net worth client where you're in the inner circle and you're getting things that aren't on market? Is that something you guys are kind of promoting, that you're in the know about stuff that's not?
I do. I usually tell people, that I'm with buyers and sellers, that I have connections in my network in the other luxury space. So I do have more ability to find off-market properties first. So being able to have these types of relationships with agents is what helps you also be able to, like you said, attest to market to your clients that you're going to be able to find something off-market for them that they can't find on Zillow or Realtor.com.
Love it. John, can you talk about marketing off-market?
Yeah, we always have 10 to 20 off-market pocket listings at any given time. We keep a spreadsheet. So if a realtor reaches out to us, we do keep a spreadsheet that we try and match up and get the criteria from the realtor of what their buyer's looking for. And so when we do get a new pocket listing, we go down that list and contact those realtors. As you know, we have to be careful because of off-market properties. You can't market them on the internet or anything like that. So we do the same thing with the inner office with Sotheby's. And that was one other thing as far as marketing that I failed to mention is we do like the international brand of a high-end real estate brokerage firm. Sotheby's is that. There are a few around the world that we all know of, but that's just something that we like to pitch also in our listing appointments. Mick's mom had her own boutique firm that sold to Coldwell Banker back in the 90s. As we know, boutique firms have limited budgets, so they might only be able to spend $10,000 or $20,000 a year on marketing. A Sotheby's or a Christie's or an Engel & Volkers or any of these high-end, they can spend tens of millions and do every single year in marketing their listings.
So that's something you talk about with your sellers, I'm assuming?
Yes.
let's talk about how you win the listings, because all of you guys are obviously winning luxury listings. But before I go to all four of you, I'm going to ask someone in the audience as well, because she's got a I don't know, $9 or $10 million listing now, sold one of the largest in Orange County, and happens to be right next to me. So I'm going to give a mic to Karen Winker for a second and let her tell you about how she wins luxury listings. And then I'll ask you guys. Sorry, it won't go too far. It's stuck on me.
Okay. Hi. Yeah, so typically speaking, my listings are all referrals. The listing that you were referring to, which was a landmark sale in Central Florida a few years back, it was $12.5 million. And the way that I got that listing is I took care of my client, further to what y'all were talking about. I had a client who bought a home for $2.5 million. It didn't include all of the land it was supposed to, but there were some funky things going on, and I got an attorney involved, and we got to keep the land. They sold off a portion of it. So their net price on that house was 1.5. When they came to sell the house, they appreciated what I had done for them on the buy side, and I valued the home significantly higher from where other people had valued it. I was looking at it a little bit differently. It was during COVID. I knew that we had some issues going on in terms of rebuilding a house, and I reached out to the builder to find out what it would cost to replicate that home in that period of time. And it was $10-11 million plus the land. I figured we could make an argument for it around $12 million. We sold it for $12.5, all cash, and we sold it within 45 days. It was a landmark sale at the time. These people remembered that, and they purchased. I showed them a home that they purchased that was off market for $4 and change million in another part of town, and now that is $10 million listing. So when you take care of people, they take care of you. They come back. And marketing, everything.
Love it. I got to ask you one more. Tell me just like in a minute or two about what you do to find global clients, or the things you attend, the places you go to prospect international.
Okay. I go everywhere. And thankfully, one of my favorite things to do is to travel. I'm also licensed in California, and there's a big international market there. But I started out, I think 15 years ago or more, with the International Council, which is now the Global Council. I made myself, I got very involved with the Global Strategic Planning Committee for the Board of Realtors. I went on a lot of trade missions, still do, overseas. I meet international agents with all companies. And I'm now on the Global Advisory Committee Global Advisory Board of the Arab MLS. I work with a lot of clients, cross nationalities, certified international property specialist. I love working with my international clients, conventions, everything, and working with, I believe in collaboration over competition. So we work with each other, we help each other, we lend each other a hand up, and it does come back to you.
Love it. Let's give Karen a round of applause for joining in right there, because I totally put her on the spot. And I just figured she's got a different approach, so we might as well hear it. All right, hold on. Let me just throw that back on. All right, let's go down the line real quick. Talk about what you're doing to win luxury listings, or just from a sales standpoint sometimes when you have a listing that you really went out of your way to go like win the listing. Tell us a little story about it or some of the things you're doing. I'll go to you first, Tiphany, because you look ready to answer it, unless I stumped you.
Always ready. So I feel like everyone has their strengths, and I, over time, have identified mine. And I have a very unique network, right? I have an interpersonal relationship throughout most professional sports, right? So I can email travel secretaries for MLB, NFL, NBA, and that's something that I bring to my listings. One of the other things that's a little untraditional, but many of my clients have commented on it, I show up as my authentic self. If you've ever seen me twice, you know I wear sneakers every day. I am my authentic self. The person you see here is the same person you're going to see when you see me with my kids or my husband or my clients. And people tend to gravitate towards that. right? I tell my clients on day one, listen, I'm going to tell you the truth and I may tell you no. You got to be okay with that. And I'm okay at this point in my life. Everyone is not going to be for me. I'm okay with that, right? I can refer somebody out, or I can agree to disagree or agree to part ways if it's not a great fit. So I think being able to tout my personal network and show up as my authentic self, and negotiating is my thing, right? And I've invested heavily in myself in that space, right? And I don't negotiate in the traditional way. I'm not going to beat you up and you feel terrible and all of those things. Most of the times I win a negotiation, the other side feels they won. That means I've done it that well, right? I want you to feel like you've won, because a successful negotiation, both sides win, right? And I tell people on my listing appointments, typically when you walk in the door, you either the favorite or the fool, right? More often than not, when you walk in the door, if you're there for the listing appointment, either you've got it and you could mess it up, or maybe you're fighting to get it, but usually they have a favorite in mind. And I tell people all the time, like, I'm a negotiating expert, not because I call myself that, not because I have all these designations, not because I've done Harvard's program on negotiation. How many agents can tell you they've negotiated against the Department of Defense and won? I have. That's my thing. And so I take that on my listings, and people tend to take that very positively.
Like it. Chris, how do you win these listings?
For me, I mean, I think the biggest thing is, we've got a lot of people up here, I think, that have had a lot of accomplishments, and you probably think they're going to win listings by going and bragging about what they've done, but I highly doubt anybody does that. We might share numbers with people and things like that, but I think the biggest thing is to go there and understand your client, understand what are their needs, what are they trying to accomplish, and then share with them how you're going to help them achieve whatever it is they're trying to do. And I think that, caring about them and relating to them and relating to their needs, I think is the most important thing. I always told our agents when we had our offices, you have to leave a listing appointment with them liking you. If they like you, you will get the listing. If you go there and brag about yourself and you're obnoxious, you're going to leave and they're going to give the listing to someone else that they feel cares, more about their needs and what they're trying to accomplish.
Love it. Danielle?
Like I said when I first got on the stage, is that something I usually already knew I was going to have an objection of when I came in the door for listing appointments, especially at these luxury properties and ultra luxury, is my year's experience. So I've actually never been asked since I've been in real estate from one client how long I've been in the business, which I know a lot of people get when they're newer and I look younger, but I've never been asked that once. And so I think that's something I uniquely bring to the table. And when I go to listing appointments is that I do the same thing that Chris does, is I don't start off by just saying accolades or things I've done. I'm very highly networked, same as Tiphany, in different circles and industries within Orlando because I've put myself there. But the things that I usually bring to the table is that I try and find out what my sellers need, what they're trying to accomplish with their home selling or buying goals. And then, I make sure to let them know that I'm going to get them to a closing table and make it happen for them. So there isn't this giant book of business that if this deal doesn't happen, I'm not just going to put it out there and then just hope it sells and that's that, because I don't have another book of business I'm going to fall back on. So we're all going to get to the closing table one way or another, and there's no one who's going to work harder to make sure that happens. And so being able to kind of have that new, young, innovative, I think that type of spirit has actually worked in my favor with a lot of listing appointments, is that they understand that I'm going to devote all of my time into just their home, because I'm not sitting here with 12 other listings on the market. It's their home and I'm going to get it sold, and they know that.
Love it. John?
I agree with what Chris said. Going back to both my sons, I had them read How to Win Friends and Influence People when they graduated college. If people like you, there's a way better chance they're going to do business with you. When I partnered with Mick, I remember specifically we went 18 months without losing a listing appointment. I had tons of energy, and I remember the first listing appointment we lost, and it was to Mary Stewart Day at Fannie Hillman, and I was ticked. I did not like losing the listing. But the energy you portray, when I'm on the phone, I probably should be standing up on the stage, because when I'm on the phone in my office, I'm always walking around because I feel like that energy is portrayed in my voice. And I can tell you, was the listing you're talking about on Lake Mabel, the one you sold for $12.5 million? I'll tell you a really quick story. We interviewed for that listing, and obviously we did not win that listing. Went out there, and the sellers said, looked me right in the eye and said, God told us we're going to sell this house for $15 million. I think they paid about 2.3 for it. 10 years prior, they had not done anything to it. It was original furniture. They bought it furnished. And I told them flat, straight in the eye, they would be fortunate on a good day to get $7 million. And so I saw it go on the market a month later, or 2 months later, at I think $14.5 million. So obviously they weren't listening to God because he told them 15. But no, and I am very faithful. I'm in the Word every morning, so I say that in jest. But darn if it didn't sell for $12.5 million. We're not always right. We're not always perfect. We're going to lose listings. But the energy is a big part of how I feel like we win listings.
Love it. Love it. All right, I got 2 more questions for you guys. How many of you guys learned something so far? Make some noise. All right, I want to know about your habits, like daily, weekly, or monthly habits. What is it? What are some of your routines or habits? Whether that's what your day looks like, what your week looks like, things you do every single month, any of the above. I'll stay with you, John.
Well, I don't exercise. If I exercise, it's going to be for fun. I play pickleball and golf and a few other things. My morning, every morning, starts off in the Word. I read the Bible every morning. I'm very faithful with that. And family's a big part for me. Both my boys, fortunately, my daughter-in-law and granddaughter all live within a mile of us. We're all over in College Park. And as far as business-wise, every morning after I'm in the Word, I do look at the MLS. I have a few data points that I check every single morning. I can tell you every day how many houses are on the market in 32789 at $1 million plus. Today there was 79. It typically is historically hovered around 90 to 100. We were as low in 2022 at down to 22 listings that were $1 million plus. And out of those 22, we only had one of them, and I did not know the other 21 agents. That's how easy it was for sellers to sell homes in 2022 and 2023. As the market gets tougher, people will gravitate towards the cream of the crop, the better. It makes our job a little easier as the market gets more balanced. But Mick and I, at least twice a week, go through our buyer-seller list, our off-market properties, our buyers we're working with. We go through our listings. I think we have 11 right now. And so we try to communicate. That's my biggest challenge, is communication. If we're not getting showings, I'd prefer just not to call the sellers for 2-3 weeks, but that's going to lose the listing. You got to stay with your buyers and your sellers and stay in communication.
Love it. Danielle, weekly, daily, monthly habits or routines?
Well, I'm a mom of a 3- and 5-year-old, so we are currently in the back to school routine. So I'm an exhausted human all the time. But on top of that, once now my kids are in school and crying and all the funness is happening, I normally do the same every single day. I'm in the MLS. I'm checking. I do my hot sheets, so I'm checking to see always what's going on in Windermere. That's in my normal market. And I like to upkeep with Winter Park, so I have them set at $1 million plus price points so I can see what's moving in the market. And then I do a lot of follow-up with my past clients. So being newer, I don't have a giant past client list, but I've really heavily leaned into my network. And so I always am, checking in with people, building relationships, seeing where I need to be, my feet in the door. As far as where that's going to work for me marketing wise. And I usually heavily invest too also in doing some sort of education every day, whether it's just listening to a luxury podcast in the car, a real estate podcast, or reading. I read a lot of the news or any articles that come up. But as far as, building my business right now, I'm heavily in networking and marketing. I think that's really important for any agents who want to get into luxury. You don't feel like it's doing something. I mean, if you went out and you made a new connection, you worked that day. And if you don't feel like you got to win, you still got to win, because that person can move the needle. They follow you on social media. They may share something of yours with somebody else. It's just a continuous cycle. And it's really easy in this business to feel defeated when you don't have a pending or a closing, or you didn't have an inspection that day, and everyone is only posting that on social media. So if you're getting and falling into those traps, that's not everybody's win. That's not everybody's real day to day. I mean, if you need to go walk a new construction so you can film some content so you look like you did something, you can do it. But you going to have coffee with somebody and you didn't post it on social media, that's still moving the needle in your business. And I think that's really important for people to understand that. And I learned heavily that a lot of these bigger agents that are more experienced in selling these luxury properties are not heavily putting everything on social media all the time. I mean, it's part of integrated in our culture now, so it's kind of mandatory in our business. But at the same time, just continually doing something every day where you feel like you're moving the needle in your business, I feel like is, something I'm really heavily doing right now.
Love it. I'd also just throw out there, I mean, I'm not an agent, so take this with a grain of salt, but I'm going to guess that the high-end luxury clientele aren't always looking for you to show them off on social media. Like, I'm going to guess John doesn't take a selfie at every closing table for a reason. I don't think all his clients want that. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't do it. I think it just, but there's a difference sometimes, and just figured I'd point that out.
To see my mug.
Chris,
I think some of the same. I mean, I think staying in touch with what's going on in your market is critical. I mean, I've got searches set up for every single market that we're in so that I get a notification the second something new comes on the market. I mean, I want to be calling my client, letting them know, hey, this came on before they're like, oh, I seen this on Zillow. Can we go look at it? I mean, if they're notifying me of things, then I'm kind of not really doing my job. So I think from a work perspective, there's that. The other thing, too, that I'll add is that I think is important is this is a crazy business, and we're 24/7. We all know that. But don't forget to take time out and do things that are important. For me, it's our family. The time we spend is priceless. You get one opportunity to do that and do it right. We're fortunate enough to have my son decided to come and work with us, which we've never encouraged our kids to work in real estate because it's way too much work. But, the fact that, a 19-year-old wants to come and spend the afternoons with his mom and dad, I think are a testament to, being a strong family and putting an emphasis on that.
love it. Tiffany, daily, weekly habits.
My habits are very similar to theirs. My alarm goes off at 5:30 every morning. Like Danielle, I have young kids. I have a 7 and an 8-year-old, which blows my mind that they're 7 and 8. So we're in the back-to-school grind. But I dedicate from 5:30 to 7 as me time. I do my daily devotional. I, attempt to work out. Today I did 20 minutes of Pilates in my pajamas in my bedroom. And, I take a shower while listening to a podcast. I am the queen of multitasking. I try to make sure that I also do something educational every day. For me, the shower and getting dressed is the time that I'll listen to a book. I think right now I'm listening to the 1% Rule. I just finished Think Less, Do More. And like Danielle said, moving the needle a little bit, right, is so, everybody shows the highlight reel, right? And it can be so deflating when you look at everybody's pending and listing and closed and this and that. The reality is doing something intentional every day. And so from 7 to 8:30, I'm in mommy mode. And then I get to my office, check the MLS, put out fires for a couple of hours, and do all of the things. And I think for me, my challenge is I really struggle. I thrive in a routine, but it is counter to my personality. So forcing myself to manage my calendar and dictate my calendar instead of letting it all manage me is one of the things I struggle with. I will find myself working until way too late instead of being intentional about taking time to be present with my kids and not be on my phone or with my computer. People laugh at me. I will be at events all the time with my iPad in my lap trying to get something done, or like, hold on 1 second, let me, and just being intentional about shutting it down is one of the things that I'm really working to do.
Love it. How many of you guys learned something from these panelists? Make some noise. We got one more question for them, but I got a couple quick announcements, and then I'll ask them the question. First off, first $500 spent on lunch at the Eden Lounge Bars on PJ Crescenzo with Element Mortgage. I'm going to cover it because he's not here, but he's going to pay for it, so make sure you give him a thank you. Aside from that, I skipped the home team at Movement Mortgage when I gave the 1, 2, 3 claps. Let's give them a 1, 2, 3. And other than that, make sure you come out next month, September 19th. You can go to Eventbrite right now. If you pull your phones out, it shows up with the QR code at some point. But if you pull out your phone, just go to Eventbrite and type in MasterclassCFL. You should see part 2 of how to sell luxury homes in Central Florida. We got 5 more people next month that are all awesome agents. And if you learn something this month, you'll probably learn just as much next month. And it'll be awesome. So give these people a round of applause before I ask them the last question. And actually, I'm going to tell a quick story, hopefully, before we do that. Because I think a lot of people that are trying to break into luxury, they're expecting to, like, do it right the first time. And the truth is, it probably takes a level of persistence. It probably takes a level of tenacity. It probably takes years to really build it right at times. You're not all going to do what Danielle does and go right in the door and just stay there. But I could tell you about 14 years ago, I started calling on real estate offices here in Central Florida, trying to speak at their meetings to pitch Cutco closing gifts. And there were offices that I got right in the door, and there were other offices that I called every single week for 6, 7, 8 years maybe. Sent gifts to the broker, stopped in for the broker, gave gifts to all their colleagues, went to see the colleagues. I probably spent 6 or 7 years getting every colleague to try to recommend me to this office, that I would drive by to go hours away to offices with the same franchise, but the one near me, I could never get through the door. And I actually really respect this person, so hopefully I'm telling the story in a good way. But here's why I say this. Sometimes it takes years of doing this stuff before you've put yourself on the map enough. Right? Like there's going to be luxury people who go in and they try to get a luxury home. They lose it to one of these people because you just haven't built up enough of whatever it is. But they always say that if people won't come to invite you on your stage, one of my mentors used to always say, you should build your own stage. You know, if people aren't asking you to be at yours, build your own stage. Or they always say if they're not inviting you to have a seat at the table, to pull your own chair up. So many years ago, we started doing this here at Masterclass. And one of the things I like about the stage is it's never about me, it's about them. I don't do much talking. It's probably the longest I've talked at any Masterclass. But here's why I share this lesson, is 14 years later, I got to give a round of applause to my friend David here, who's joining us, because 14 years of calling on this office every day to try to speak at his office, and really, he's such a great leader, he came to support his people. But the lesson in the story to me, and again, I hope I share this in a respectful and the best way, is that sometimes it takes years of showing up and doing the work and doing the right things to gain the relationships and the level of respect to get the engagement you expect. So Orlando Real Producers didn't start overnight. I didn't start at Orlando Real Producers. I did 7, 8 years of selling closing gifts and trying to get into people like Jenny's office, you know, to pitch them gifts. But 15 years later, you know, we host some of the best agents in town to talk to you guys about it. Obviously, you guys came to fill the room, so I appreciate that. Hopefully, you'll come to enjoy the Orpies next month. We probably have 500 or 600 of you there. If you don't know, get a ticket. They're all online. Come and find me. But you guys get what I'm saying? It takes a level of persistence, and sometimes it's going to take you years and years and years of showing up and doing the right thing before you actually see the results. So let's give everyone a round of applause before I give them the last question. Hopefully, I'll get the lesson in that. The last question is about the luxury market in Orlando. Where do you see it going in the future? Where do you see it right now? Like, give us kind of your update on where you see luxury in Orlando versus the rest of the country today and where you see that going. I'll start with you, John.
My father always said, if you have Central Florida real estate that you own and time on your side, you will never lose. And it's always held true. I have been telling people for the last couple of years since COVID that Central Florida has been in an unbelievable sweet spot. There's people all over the country that are retiring, selling their businesses, and they're wanting to move to Florida. And they're like, just sold my business. We're pretty well off. And then they look at Palm Beach and they go, God, we're dirt poor. We're never going to be able to afford anything. And Central Florida has still been affordable. And when you compare it to South Florida, the luxury real estate market has been strong here. Most of our deals over $2 million are cash deals, so the interest rates have not affected those buyers very much. And I just think it's going to continue to be strong. This year's we've got a lot of headwinds. There's an election. There are higher rates for the people that are trying to buy the under $2 million properties. It affects them a lot. And so there's just a lot of economic uncertainty. We've had some market volatility. But I'm always very bullish on Central Florida real estate. When I have buyers say, hey, we want to buy this house, but we might be selling it in 2 to 3 years, I tell them you might be better off renting because there's no guarantees. If you've got a 5+ year horizon and you feel like you're overpaying 5 or 10%, I think you're going to be okay in the long run unless we have another economic crash. We all know what the definition of a good real estate deal is, where everybody thinks they're getting screwed. So.
I think that the luxury market here has been pretty, stabilized with everything that's gone on with the shifts of it. I haven't felt it too many turbulence, like you said, at the $1 million, $2 million up price points. I think that though it's probably, we're seeing price points creeping up. And I think that there's a lot of changes happening. This is an election year, the economy, there's going to be, things that affect it. And, even at the higher price brackets, that these types of individuals and high net worth earners are going to be more, optimistic, or they're going to be more reservant of what they're going to do with their homes in the future, and how, other exterior factors are going to play into effect in our real estate market. But I think Central Florida is always growing. We have so many opportunities in Florida that buying property in this state, you're really not going to be at much of a risk as if you were back in, the Midwest. I'm from Kansas, and, you're not going to have a home there that's going to be able to, appreciate value like it is here in Central Florida, just with our economy. So I think even with everything else going on around us, we're going to continue to see a rise in our luxury market, and, still be in one of the most secure markets to be selling real estate.
Love it. Chris?
If I've learned one thing, I think in the last 3 years in Central Florida, is never say that'll never sell. Kind of to John's point. I mean, we've seen incredible growth in the market here, I think, in Central Florida. Home selling for prices that I never thought we would see. So I think there's tons of opportunity. I agree also, with John. I think the outlook 5 years from now, if you buy something, you're good. I think the days of people, over the last couple of years, we've seen someone buy something and sell it, a year later for 30% more than they paid for it. That's over. I think you need to educate people that that's not happening anymore. That was an anomaly. But I do think the market's just going to continue to grow. I think we're still, if you look at any other of the luxury markets in Florida, I mean, we're still relatively cheap, and you look nationwide, places like New York, California, things like that, I mean, our real estate is still a bargain.
Love it. Tiffany?
I agree, and I feel like, a couple years ago, pre-COVID, the median price point in Orlando was like in the mid-2s as a median, right? I think now as a median, it's like higher 4s. And so before, anything in the $1 million price point currently is considered luxury. I see that needle moving because home values have increased, and I see us becoming a major player in the ultra luxury space, because in comparison to Miami, to West Palm, our real estate is really affordable, specifically in the luxury space. And so I foresee a lot of opportunities specifically for those in the luxury space to be able to still grow and to be able to really push the needle forward, because we really have something to offer in Central Florida. And I think we will become a major player in the ultra luxury space.
Love it. Let's give all these panelists a giant round of applause. Would y'all agree that was one of the best sessions we've had in a while? Make some noise if you think so. We're going to wrap up. Make sure you join us for lunch. Best burgers in town, I promise you, in the Eden Lounge bar. Appreciate you guys. Come out next month. Go to Masterclass. There's already 140 tickets sold, and that's before this session started. So I'm going to guess that more people signed up. So seriously, grab them now, or you might not have one next month, because they did such a good job. Next month will probably sell out before, just because these guys rocked it. But anyway, thank you guys so much for coming. See you at the Eden Lounge. And panelists, let's take a quick photo. Brian, you want to do this?